world thought the Xenomorph Queen was the deadliest creature alive, until the lab's doors sealed, and the real prisoner made herself known. The glass was 12 inches thick, reinforced with titanium, layered with adaptive shielding. Nothing had ever escaped from Containment Room Omega. That is, until today. Dr. Karen Rourke stood silently in front of the observation deck, eyes locked on the massive, breathing form crouched behind the reinforced glass. The Xenomorph Queen shifted ever so slightly, her long tail flicking with a predator's patience. Wires, restraints, chemical suppression fields, all functioning perfectly. On paper, the Queen wasn't going anywhere. "She's calm today," said Lieutenant Hartman, stepping up beside her. His body armor gleamed under the sterile fluorescent lights. "She's never just calm," Rourke replied. "She's waiting." "For what?" "That's what keeps me up at night." The Queen's second set of jaws clicked against her main teeth, not in aggression but almost rhythmically, like she was thinking. Karen hated that notion more than anything. This was supposed to be an apex predator, not a tactician. Below them, behind layers of security and protocols, the rest of the lab buzzed with routine activity. Scientists monitored vitals, analyzed behavioral patterns, and reviewed data from the Queen's recent gestational cycles. Not that they ever allowed her to produce another drone. God forbid one of those got out again. But what concerned Rourke the most wasn't the Queen herself. It was the feeling that the lab wasn't truly in control, and hadn't been for a long time. At 3:17 a.m., every door in sublevel 7 sealed simultaneously. It was subtle at first, just a flicker of lights, a glitch in the magnetic door sensors. Most of the night shift brushed it off, assuming another of the facility's routine power adjustments. After all, this lab was buried 5 miles beneath the Nevada desert. The military didn't spare expenses here. Then came the silence. No alarms, no buzzers, just a complete dead zone. Rourke was asleep in her quarters when the emergency override failed. Her comm unit crackled with static before finally producing a single automated message. Lockdown protocol initiated. Sublevel 7 under autonomous quarantine. She dressed in 30 seconds flat. By the time she reached Central Command, a wall of blue screens had replaced the usual flurry of data. Every access terminal on Sublevel 7 was dark. No video feed, no telemetry, just a glowing red warning. Signal interference detected. Hartman arrived moments later, out of breath and wide-eyed. "We lost visual on the Queen," he said. Rourke's heart dropped. "How?" "The chamber is sealed." "Exactly. Sealed from us." Command tried bypassing the system, forcing a manual override, even deploying maintenance bots through the ventilation shaft. Nothing worked. Sublevel 7 was off the grid. At 4:02 a.m., a single camera flickered to life. It was Feed 72B, an old security line in the maintenance corridor. The image was grainy, full of static, but unmistakable. The Queen was still in her chamber, still restrained. But someone else was with her. Rourke leaned forward. "Who is that?" The figure stood motionless in front of the glass. Not a scientist, not a guard. No badge, no uniform. She had long black hair, wore a simple hospital gown, and her bare feet made no sound on the metal floor. The Queen stared at her. Not with fury, not with hunger, with recognition. Rourke whispered, "Who is she?" No one answered. 10 years ago, the lab received a signal from deep space. An odd transmission buried within the wreckage of a derelict colony ship. Incomprehensible to humans, but perfectly clear to the AI embedded in the lab's central core. They are not the beginning. They are the tool. She is the architect. The message had been dismissed as cosmic nonsense. But after the Queen was captured 3 years later and brought to the lab under the name Project Black Mother, the signal began broadcasting again. And then, shortly after, the girl appeared. No records, no identification, just a silent, catatonic figure recovered from the edge of the Utah desert. Her blood was type O. Her DNA was human. Mostly. When she arrived, the Queen stopped resisting. Now, Rourke watched as the girl placed her palm flat against the glass. The Queen mirrored her. "She's not a patient," Hartman said slowly. "She's the warden." The girl had been listed under false pretenses. Subject Theta. Officially, she was under observation for psychic trauma. Unofficially, she was ignored. But now, she walked freely inside a level that should be inaccessible. How? No one could answer that. At 4:39 a.m., feed 72B cut out again. This time, permanently. The power outage spread. Lights failed across levels 6 and 8. Backup generators kicked in, but something was wrong with the readings. Energy wasn't vanishing. It was being redirected. Rourke did the math. Someone inside the core systems was rerouting every backup into the Queen's containment field. "Why?" Hartman asked, watching her tap furiously at the console. Rourke didn't look up. "Because it's not to keep the Queen in." He swallowed hard. "It's to keep us out." Deep below them, the girl stepped into the Queen's chamber. The locks disengaged, not with brute force but with eerie cooperation. The restraints unlatched. The biochemical suppression faded. The Queen rose slowly, towering above her companion, but made no move to strike. Instead, she knelt. The girl's lips finally parted. A whisper. "I remember now." She walked around the Queen's massive form, hand trailing along her chitinous armor like it was a familiar pet. The Queen shifted, her body coiling protectively around her. Rourke's final override failed. "Cut the power to the entire lab," she ordered. "Ma'am." "Do it." At 5:01 a.m., Facility L9 went completely dark. When the emergency lights flickered back on, Feed 01, a camera from the very top level, showed something impossible. A woman in a hospital gown, walking barefoot across the desert, black hair blowing in the wind. Behind her, emerging from a massive hole in the ground like a wound, was the Queen. Free, towering, untouched by the desert heat. They kept walking, unchallenged, as if the entire world had agreed to look the other way. By the time military response teams arrived, the lab was in ruins. No bodies, no data, just a single message burned into the mainframe. "The chains were yours." She just held the key. The government buried the incident, called it a system failure. No one outside classified levels even knew the lab existed. But Rourke knew. She'd seen something that rewrote the rules. The Queen was never their prisoner. The girl wasn't their subject. They were both part of something older, something that had allowed itself to be found, studied, and caged until it decided not to be. Months later, in a mining colony on Europa, reports surfaced of a strange sight. An enormous insectoid figure walking alongside a pale-skinned woman, unbothered by the cold. A scout team was sent. They never returned. Across the stars, the whisper began to spread. Spoken in the dark corners of ships, scratched into derelict station walls. She was in the lab with the Queen, but she was never the one in chains.